The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely to have you all with us. And here we are, nearly at the end of 2016. How's the sound, Terry? Can everyone hear me all right, folks? Any responses anywhere? No one saying anything? Yeah, it's good. Johnny Barnes up in Canada. Good. Thank you, John. You're the first man on the trigger. I don't know where Terry is. I know he's here. It's nice to have Terry with us. And I don't hear anything. Oh, Stephen, you're up in Alaska as well. You're another, Chase. Yes, thank you. Michael, Janet, lots of people. Everyone can hear. Merry Christmas to all of you. Hank and his family down there in Singleton, New South Wales. Crikey, folks. Yes, good evening to our guests and members and friends in America and elsewhere, and good morning and early afternoon in New Zealand. Nice to have you with us. Here we are. Eric says, I can hear you, but I'm sure you can't hear me. Well, I'm not supposed to hear you on this particular version, Eric, but you're all muted. But great to have you with us. Here we are, the end of the year, folks. Can you believe it? Crazy, isn't it? 2016 nearly over. Today's, in my part of the world, in Australia, today's the 23rd, Friday the 23rd. Pretty much, well, the last working day before Christmas. Markets have been getting very, very thin. It's all been slowing down. Not a lot has been happening. It went way too fast, Scott, didn't it? Okay. Let's see who all our friends are with us here today. Okay, so good. Alan, happy Christmas to you, my friend, Albert. Alan Varian's up in Brisbane. Alex is with us. Chase, of course, nice to have you, Chase. He's a regular with us here. Daryl over in Mossman. Daryl, hope 2017 is better for you than 16 has been. I know you've had a few issues, my friend, but stay strong. This too will pass. Donnie Medell up in Canada. Eric, another Eric, the other Eric S. He's doing a tutorial at the moment. We're sort of struggling to get all the tutorials, the main teaching part of them, finished before Christmas. I think, Eric, you've got the final session tomorrow, which is my Christmas Eve, your Friday. It's great. Frank, Hank, yes, hello, Hank. Janet, nice to have you with us, Janet. Look, all these lovely people with us. Johnny Barnes, John Lisserman down in Coffs. Yeah, Mark, Mark Lutz, he's doing a tutorial at the moment. He's a switched on guy. Marvina, Marilyn, lovely to have you, Marilyn. Michael Pell again, got him, Michael. Good luck for the new year, mate. Mike Murphy's a tutorial guy. Norbert, nice to have you. Randy, I haven't seen you for years. Randy's Randy Hinderaker. He's a lovely old bloke. He's a ex-fighter, ex-flying guy. He used to fly those bush planes into Canada. Got some amazing stories to tell, and he's been with the Daniel Code for years and years, but haven't heard from you for a long time. Rolf, nice to have you with us. Rose, hello, Rose. We always have to say a particular welcome to the ladies because we don't get many of them for some reason or other. We'd like to have more. It's lovely to have more ladies around us. Sven's a new guy. He's a guest doing a trial of the Daniel Code. Terry down in Melbourne and Tom in Florida. Tom, good to have you with us. Toddy and Tony D up in Chicago. Great, folks. I was going to regale you with some trading stories to wrap up the year, but I've decided to take a different tack. I thought there's been so much interesting stuff happening this year, and most of you, the vast majority of our clients, of course, are Americans. You've been living it, but we've been living it vicariously with you. Australian politics is so dull, it's just deadly dull. We have basically a two-party system. We have the so-called Liberal Party, which is actually the Conservative Party, and they're a middle-of-the-road socialist party whose main clients are big business. And then we have the Labor Party, which is the equivalent of the Democrats. They're the party of Labor, particularly organised Labor, very much dominated by the trade unions, and their main clientele, of course, is the trade unions. But apart from those sort of biases of who they're looking after and leaning towards, there's really not that much difference between them. And it's deadly dull, and it's poor government. In fact, it's all of the problems that Mr. Trump's identified. So it's been absolutely invigorating to hear someone. It doesn't matter whether you like the guy or not, but we're just long overdue for someone to have stood up and pointed out the bleeding obvious that the political class are a disgrace. They run this incessant business of politics to feather their own nest, and it's really hard to discern that they actually do very much for the population, except every time government gets involved in business and making choices, they manage to make the wrong choice. And here we are, the picture you're seeing here, our welcome screen. You should be seeing that all right. Let me make sure. This is actually a painting. This is a painting by Michelangelo of Daniel, which is where the Daniel Code comes from, for those that know. This particular painting's on it's a fresco on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome. A beautiful masterpiece from the master Michelangelo. Let's move on, and lots to say and talk to you about today. And those of you who don't already know, markets are rational, orderly, sometimes predictable, and the Daniel Code itself is a set of proprietary ratios that control time and price in all markets. So let's see what we've got here. Well, 2016, wow, it was a year of surprises and change, wasn't it? We thought of the first big shock was Brexit, with Britain voting to leave the European Union. That was a big surprise. It was a big shock. Once again, the liberal media had it all stitched up. You got all the arguments why leaving the European Union would be a disaster, that it wouldn't happen, that the vote to remain, they had two votes. You could either vote leave or remain. That would leave the European Union or remain with the European Union. They had it stitched up, and everyone believed that Remain was going to happen, and was over the line, and the polls supported it, and very much a little prelim of what we finished up getting with Mr. Trump. And out of Brexit, we lost David Cameron, the PM, who was really a closet Europhile, and we got Boris Johnson and Mrs. May, the new Prime Minister, which really is not that much of a change, because Mrs. May was the likely successor to David Cameron. She was in his cabinet and very much followed his view of things. Boris Johnson was he's the ex-Lord Mayor of London, a very funny, amusing, witty character, great writer. And he's been the Mayor of London, went back into Parliament, and he led the call to leave. He led the Brexit challenge. And it seemed logical that he would get to run the government after that was so successful. That hasn't happened, and Boris has been appointed Foreign Secretary, which sounds wonderful, but he's been undermined and white-anted pretty much. And I think he's in the cabinet just to try to keep him in the fold. He's the one guy who could upset the whole apple cart if he wanted to. But, like a lot of these people, and most of us, I guess, he's got skeletons in the closet, and he's offended a lot of people on the way through, and he's not universally loved by his party by any means. So then the Donald was the biggest story all year. I mean, how you Americans put up with a presidential campaign that runs so long is quite extraordinary. You're a strong and powerful people to be able to put up with it. But it was a marvelous story. Whether you like the guy or not doesn't really matter. It's exciting to have change. Things are so bad. It's not just in America by any means. This is a worldwide movement of the liberals have cemented power and control everywhere. They're enforcing ideology through all sorts of regulations and indeed laws. There's a mayor in France today. He's been sent for trial because he said there were just a whole lot of Muslim children in a classroom, about 85 or 90%, and he made the comment that's an awful lot to change. Worried about changing the character and the nature of France, which used to be a bit like Japan, used to be a very homogenous country, and the French ascribe to themselves certain values which they see as French, and they're not a nation of immigrants like Australia and America, where we come from everywhere and bits and pieces and different shapes and sizes and colours. Hey, Rob, I'll use all this later. Thank you, my friend. Rob's texting me here on the side. Rob H. in New Zealand, very, very smart guy. Good mate of mine. He's a real smart guy, operator, trader, investor. Yeah, and Trump was the big story for the whole year, and it just got better and better as it got closer to the election, and had ups and downs, of course. And we finished up, we got Trump, the lovely Melania, and Ivanka, and lost the Obamas and Hillary. So lots of Hollywood celebrities excited us by promising to leave the US if Trump won or the presidential election, and unfortunately, that change hasn't happened. Now, this star worship of actors and singers is a thing that's completely alien to me, but I know that's the new culture. But it's extraordinary how we find these pretty much inconsequential people and their 15 minutes of fame, or some of them, of course, it's many years of fame. They're presented by the media as being people of quality that ought to be giving its advice, and we ought to be grateful to take it. And I don't get that at all, but that's how the world has gone, isn't it? And it's just going to be a wonderful year to see all this rolling out. Trump's appointments are equally interesting. He's got a very lot of people around him. All of them have the same thing. They're disciplined people. A lot of them are business people. And I mean, if the worst thing that happens is Trump starts trying to run governments a business, that would be one of the great advances of all time. The unaccountability of government, the waste, the spending, all governments. I'm not having a go at America by any means. They have a better control and more transparency than a lot of countries, including my own. But this government handling your money, I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Here we are. So what's Marvina is telling me, current dilemma in US involves Trump's $340 million in loans from Deutsche Bank under investigation for real estate irregularities. I mean, so what? Everyone knows he's a real estate developer. They're not paragons of virtue. You don't get to be top of the tree in probably the toughest real estate market in the world. It's a bit like what's happening to our much beloved rugby down under, that the rugby union, which is in England, which was originally was the home of the game, keeps making these rules that are bound on every other country, including Australia and New Zealand. And they keep watering down the game and tightening the tackle rules, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And had a very famous New Zealand All Blacks captain, Tana Umaga, said some years ago when he was chipped by a referee for a particularly vigorous tackle, he said, this is rugby, it's not tiddlywinks. It's a bit the same with a lot of this criticism of Trump. The stories about his life and his dalliances with women, and so what? I mean, the guy has not been a career politician. He didn't set out by life saying, I'm going to become a politician. I must never do anything that could ever be criticized again. He's lived a full and vigorous life, and, those things happen. And I mean, who would care about it, for goodness sakes? I mean, to me, it's just absolutely... Yeah, Rolf, All Blacks still king. Yeah, hope they are next year too. It's just, to me, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I guess it's the 24-hour media cycle, isn't it? You've got more media than we need. If half of them all drop dead tomorrow, you wouldn't notice it. We've got so much overcapacity in media. They've got to write stories, and they want to be read, so they write things that people will find controversial. I mean, if I write a story, I used to write a lot for a few years there. I was churning out a story every week for publication somewhere. You can read them all on the Daniel Code website. Just click on the articles tab. Most of them are still there. And if you write a story saying, the market's trending up and this is going to happen, that's going to happen, it's great. It's the truth, but no one's going to read it. You've got to write an article saying, the market's going to crash. S&P's going to 500. They'll all read that. So it's the shock value. And so much of journalism today is just seeking that shock value. And it's really denuded the media space of really it's what its job is to do there. I mean, it's this issue, I guess, of is it news or is it entertainment? And 95% of what we get in our media these days is entertainment. It's the same all over the world. Let's see what else we've got here. Yes, hopeless Hillary and the hopey changey thing. I mean, that's apropos of nothing. That's what Sarah Palin said. You remember Barack campaigned on hope and change, and she said, "How's that hopey changey thing going for you?" A beautiful turn of phrase. But Michelle Obama there at it all the time, talking to Oprah. God, what a pair. Says we're now living without hope. I mean, Democrats, there are literally pages and pages of newsprint, endless hours of media trying to analyze why Hillary lost. Democrats had themselves in a complete bubble in the same way that the Remainers for Brexit had themselves in a bubble. They believed that Hillary was over the line. They believed they had a great ground game. They believed that Trump was essentially unelectable. I can remember when the primaries were going on, the Democrats Hillary saying, I hope Trump wins the nomination. He's the guy I really want to run against. And everyone dismissed the guy, his own party. Don't forget, this is what's going to be the issue next year. It's not going to be Trump and the Democrats. It's going to be Trump against his own party, because nobody, very, very few of the Republicans supported Trump wholeheartedly. Most were at least cynical. Some were rude. Some were dismissive. Paul Ryan certainly didn't want to support Trump. He did run very hard in Wisconsin for his party, but not for Trump. And Mitch McConnell just straight out says, even to this day, I didn't think he had a hope. And where this is all going to go, the conflict's going to come from is that, remember, cast your minds back, Trump's first battle was against his own party. He stood up there and with his other, everyone else running for president, were there 17 of them? They were governors, ex-governors, mayors, leaders of the Republican Party. Jeb Bush, the Bushes have been the recent decades the rulers of the Republican Party in the same way as the Clintons have been the rulers of the Democratic Party. The assumption was Jeb was a foregone conclusion. The next chart was probably little Marco. He was spruiked a lot by a lot of the media as an up-and-coming young guy, etc. And Trump's first battle during the primaries was against his own party. And that's going to be the risk next year. What's going to happen when Trump's policy comes up against the policies that the Republicans have got and have been working on and building for years and years and years. And don't forget, all of this is driven by ego and power. The leaders of the House, the leaders of Congress, these are very powerful men who see themselves as very important people. They're not going to want to have their views and their agendas pushed aside. They're not going to roll over meekly for Trump. The lesser ones in the Republican Party right now, Trump is such a force of nature, and he's capable of doing so much damage to any politician if he really puts his mind to it, that they don't want to pick a fight with him. But it's going to boil over. That's going to be the friction point, and that's going to happen reasonably early in the presidency, probably in the first 6 months of 2017. And, there's this constant battle with the Democrats trying to understand why Hillary lost. It's Comey and the FBI. It's the Russians hacking some, not quite sure what they're alleged to have hacked. There's absolutely no evidence about it. There's John Podesta's emails, which were damning enough. There's Donna Brazil leaking the questions. I mean, completely and utterly dishonest. But they'll blame everyone else but themselves. And the reality is, Hillary didn't lose. Trump won. The sheer power and force of the man. You think who he overcame to win the primary. That was his biggest battle. That was his battle against the establishment, well-funded families that had been doing this stuff for generations, in the Bushes, for example, Senate candidates who had significant resources, had many campaigns behind them, leaders of the Republican Party damning him. McCain wouldn't have him, that little creep Lindsey Graham, who really is a complete and utter disgrace. He was super critical of him. Romney, all of them. That was Trump's greatest battle, in my view, was to win the primary. And to do that, he overpowered them with his own personal strength and charisma. And whatever it is, I mean, you have to admit, this is one very, very powerful dude. And he's got the runs to prove it. And it's going to be an epic clash because that's the first of the real fight, Trump versus the Republican establishment. It's been glossed over now. It's all swung to Republicans versus Democrats. But Trump's never been a true Republican. And his first and greatest battles, I think, are going to be against the Republican establishment. And I think that's what's going to roll out in 2017. So that's basically the Hillary story. She honestly, standing from afar, it was incredible to see. We all started off, me included. I mean, I'm not an American. I don't have a vote. I'm just an interested onlooker. But we were thrilled to be following all of the dramas of the American presidential election. And we assumed, I certainly assumed, like everyone else, that Hillary would be the Democratic candidate, and I assumed she'd be a shoo-in. And it was, just Trump's power that got the stage that she was no longer a shoo-in, and then was a beaten candidate. So that's the one thing you haven't heard from the Democrats yet. Trump won because he's Trump. Trump won because he was a more attractive candidate. Doesn't matter all the flaws and nitpicking that went on. To the electorate at large, on balance, he was a more attractive candidate. And that fact can't be overcome. And I hate to say US Democrats are behaving like spoiled children, because most of them are not. But this lunatic fringe, which all political parties have, but the lunatic fringe of the Democrats seems to get, I guess they get all the media coverage and all the airtime because these are the people that the liberal media identifies with. But it's crazy. But anyway, folks, always have hope. Nice to be talking about hope from both sides of it. Michelle says they don't have any hope. Donald says there's lots and lots of hope, but don't ever forget, hope is a Christian concept that we get from the Gospels. Hope of the resurrection, hope of forgiveness, hope of life everlasting. All these are Christian concepts that come from the Gospels. And the Gospels, of course, were written because Jesus was born and lived and died. And that's why we have Christmas. It's the time we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, and that can be akin to celebrating hope. So I'm always full of hope. My life has been always hopeful, and most of it's been realized. I'm sure there's a lot more to come. So I do urge you over Christmas to just take a moment to realize that hope, that most important ingredient. We all need hope every day to keep going, to overcome adversity, to overcome sadness, loss. Got to have hope. And hope comes to us as a gift from God, comes as a gift from the birth of Jesus and from his life. And that's what the Gospels wrote about. So as well as having a Merry Christmas. I mean, this whole argument of Happy Holiday and Merry Christmas doesn't affect me. I've always said Merry Christmas. I didn't even know it was terribly improper. So there you are. I've certainly lived a sheltered life down here in New Zealand and Australia. As well as having a Merry Christmas, have a hopeful Christmas. And remember, we have the gift of hope, a wonderful thing to think about and contemplate. If you're feeling a bit ordinary over Christmas at any time, folks, if you have any problems, troubles, sickness, worries, losses, think about the hope that we have. Okay, last night's visitor. This is a little bit different for you tonight, this webinar, folks, because I'm just sort of had a few thoughts about things, and Eric likes it. Eric says, your perspective is refreshing, John. Always enjoy this part of the seminar. Good for you, mate. I'm getting all these other comments too, don't you, Chase? They believe in their own BS. Quite right. That's very, very succinct. Oh, Elizabeth Warren. Oh, my good. Rob, you can't say nasty things about people, particularly Christmas, but she is an absolute horror, isn't she? Elizabeth Warren, my God, can you imagine being married to that? That's ruined my day already. Let's move on. I had a visitor last night, folks. He's my nephew, actually, and I hadn't seen him for about, I suppose, 9 or 10 years. He's a young man. He's was just, I suppose he was a little boy when I saw him last. Now he's about 6'4". He's a big, big young man. He's educated in an intelligent way, had a decent school education, then went on to do his trade as an electrician. He's now qualified as an electrician. He started his own business. He's got 4 or 5 people working for him with an electrical company in Auckland, New Zealand. Good-looking guy, full of enthusiasm, high hopes, and highly ambitious. And he wants to be a trader. And it was a fascinating conversation because, if you'd asked me, I'd have said this guy is smarter than the average. He's certainly got modern person skills. He, finds websites, reads books, reads periodicals, reads papers, as a devourer of information. And he's been very, very interested in trading. Hey, Janet. Got to say hello to Janet, folks. This is Janet up in Canada, Janet R. You remember Janet from the tutorial Los Angeles, some of you guys? Janet had a bad fall, broke her ankle, tore all her tendons, and she's hoping to get over that broken ankle. She had an 8-inch cut from the surgery. Got taken away in an ambulance. She sent me some photos. It was very dark. I couldn't see a lot. Jan doesn't see you getting bundled off in the ambulance. I'm really sorry to hear that, darling. There was 4 or 5 feet of snow around. I mean, I don't know why you'd live in a place that's cold, but anyway, that's what you do. You pretty well live where you're brought up and what you know. But Janet, get well, darling. Karen joins me, and John Bear as well, sending our love, and get well. And we're thinking of you. Just you've got a lot more work to do on your tutorial, but take the break, get well, recover, and be in touch. Let me know. We start again in the new year with all of our tutorial folks. Okay, so anyway, so this young gentleman had this interesting conversation with him, and he brought me the modern perspective that trading, which he wants to be a trader, and he thinks that the answer is entirely in technology. And he gave me a detailed analysis of high-frequency trading and how the high-frequency traders pay the exchanges to co-locate their servers. So the idea is you've got a server sending out prices, and if you can put your own server closer to that server, it gets that data before it goes out and is disseminated elsewhere around the city loop. And then, of course, from there it goes out to service providers and goes overseas, goes through all of the international cables. And, down here in Australia and New Zealand, we finish up getting that data many seconds later, sometimes a lot of seconds later. And as a expert in electronics, he was explaining to me that how these high-frequency traders, how they pay the exchanges large amounts of money to locate their boxes, their servers, very close to the exchange service, gives them an undeniable edge, and he can't see how that can be overcome. And I thought it was really interesting that I'm sure a lot of people think that way as well. His other big area of interest, though, was stocks. And he was talking about trends and how you identify trends. It was clear he knows absolutely nothing after, many years of studying. This is such an iconoclastic industry, trading, particularly our sort of trading, futures trading, spot forex trading, where we're trading sort of 1 to 7 days or less. Tom, I was talking to earlier, Tom from Florida, is actually a partner in a broking firm that's based in New York and Florida. And Tom, your partner David, wrote me a very nice email to say that he'd increased his account by 25% just on trading the Daniel Code signals in oil, if I'm not mistaken, on that big bar of November the 30th. And he's a very short-term trader. He was in and out of that trade many, many times during the day. The point is there's all sorts of different types of traders. There are people who are very short-term traders like David, who I just talked about. There are people like Sage and Mustang, who I'm going to talk to you about next, who have been sort of normal Daniel Code 1 to 5, 1 to 7 day traders. They want to be long-term traders now. The point I was trying to get across to this young gentleman, my nephew, is I've been in this business for 30 years now. I've traded everything you can possibly imagine. I've traded 3-tick charts, daily charts, weekly charts, monthly charts, 12-day charts, anything you can think of. And the really interesting thing about trading is despite these waves and waves of technology that we've had with all of this electronic speed, convenience, supposedly security, the changes in the very nature of trading, the floors have gone. We used to have trading floors, pit sessions and other sessions. Pit was called RTH, regular trading hours. They've all gone. The only pit that's left now is for the big S&P. Everything else changed from men in the pit in fancy coloured jackets bidding into each other. It's all gone essentially electronic now. And these changes have proved fundamental to many, many people. The people who used to be the floor traders haven't got that work anymore. The people who used to be the order compilers haven't got that work anymore. And it's all getting done electronically. And these changes have been massive if you think about them. But the reality is nothing has changed in trading. I still make exactly the same percentages and returns as I was making 25 years ago. All of this sophistication and change has probably transferred an advantage from one group to another group. So give you a readily understood example, which doesn't affect us, but indirectly it does. On the exchanges where they're trading stocks, the New York Stock Exchange, the market makers there used to pool together orders. In other words, they'd get orders phoned into them or given to them by a little slip of paper, and they'd pool these orders until they had enough to do a swap off with another broker or whatever. So those people were getting information before the general market, and it was very, very lucrative to be one of those people who were the floor traders on the exchange for a broker. Hugely lucrative, made a great deal amount of money. No doubt there are vestiges of that, and they still do. Well, that sort of advantage, they were getting advanced knowledge of orders. It's really what HFT is doing. They're getting advanced knowledge of prices and orders because they're seeing the electronic data before everyone else. So those sort of areas of privilege are still there, and they've shifted from one group of people to other groups of people. But nothing's changed with the trading. Our trading still makes exactly the same amount of money. And that's very hard to explain to a young person that it's not technology. I promise you, I am the least technology capable person in the world. Computers weren't invented when I was a young man. You know, the first computer I got was a Windows computer before the days of their Windows programs. And unless you knew the codes that you had something // unless you could type that in, it didn't work. And my first computer, little thing it was, sat there and looked at me for 2 years. I could never make it work, ever. So technology's totally passed me by. I was brought up in an era I did everything with pen and paper, and I mean pen with ink in it. Parker pens and Quink ink, still use them to this day. So this technology has made life wonderful for lots of people. Accountants, the back office appreciates it. People think they're getting their trades executed more quickly, but they're not. Relatively, they're just holding a relative place in the flow. That's all that's happening. But nothing has changed in futures markets. One of the great things of hope that you have, that the futures markets and the forex markets will always be there for you folks. They're not going to go away, even though they're most are on holidays now, and they'll be sleepy for another 10 or 12 days. They'll always be there for you. So that's exciting. The other conversation I had yesterday is with Mustang and Sage, who a lot of you know. They're old friends of mine. They're a couple in New Zealand. And Mustang's interesting character. He's very involved in corporates, and he's director of many companies. He's also a chartered accountant. His wife, Sage, has got a lot of new interest now, and she's writing books. She's had 3 books published, children's books. David, JC, a disadvantaged kid. No Commodore 64 and bouncing balls. No, mate. I always thought a Commodore 64 was a Holden motor car, but that's an Australian joke. Anyway, I was great friends for many years with Mustang and Sage. In fact, Mustang was the second person I ever taught the Daniel Code to, and some little time after that, he taught it to his wife, Sage, or I taught to her, I forget which. It's all a long, blurry past now, but she's turned out, he's a very good trader, and she's turned out to be one of our very best traders we've ever had. And that's simply because, frankly, she has no interest in markets, no interest at all. Never saw a chart until she learnt the Daniel Code. So all she knows is the Daniel Code, and she just follows what I've taught her and what Mustang's taught her from his learning from the Daniel Code. And you don't let all this other stuff get in the way. The capability is enormous. But we used to have lunch in New Zealand. Often whenever they came up to Taupo. They live a bit further south than Wellington. Whenever they had a holiday, they've got a holiday home in Taupo, just on the southern side of the lake. Very nice. And they'd come up for a break, and we'd have lunch. Wonderful. And it was interesting. Hadn't talked to them for 3 or 4 months, and talking to them yesterday, they've had an evolution of their trading life. Mustang's taken on a lot more board appointments, board director of various companies, and Sage is really right into her book writing. She's had 3 published, and she tells me she's written 33 books and children's books. She's got teams of people literally doing illustrations and pictures and what have you. It's become a pretty involved business for her. And they wanted to scale down. They didn't want to leave their trading, but they were looking to find a less demanding way of trading. Now, it wasn't so long ago that Sage told me she was trading 55 Forex contracts, or it might have been 52, but she was virtually doing analysis on every Forex contract you can think of and a few that we've never heard of. And the time involved in that was massive. And what they've done, their solution is that they're just trading, they're going to just trade waterfalls and staircases, which are really esoteric trend signals that the Daniel Code gives you. You guys who've done tutorials in the last couple of years know about waterfalls and staircases, and they're absolutely wonderful trend signals. And what they're going to do is just wait to get a signal. Waterfall means that that's a short side trade, a sell trade. Staircase is the opposite, it goes up. But typically these signals give you bigger than average moves, much bigger than average in many cases. I'm going to show you a chart of that. And what they're going to do is they're going to just take these long-term signals, typically long-term signals, and they're just going to trade off them. So what this is taking the Daniel Code and personalizing it for what you want. So this is a couple who've been trading very intensely, the way I teach you at the tutorials, 1 to 5 day trading, analysis every day, orders every day, move the stops every day. And they said, we've got so many other interests now. We don't want to lose our trading. We love the trading, and it's very lucrative, but we want to find a way to have less time involved in it. And that's what they're doing. They're taking the waterfalls and staircase signals, and they're going to just trade in and out, I assume, in and out of those trends. We had a bit of a talk about you need a strategy to get in and out of these trades, and you need to know where your stops go and so forth. But it was interesting to tell them. So they're using the Daniel Code. They're personalizing it to themselves to fix the work-life balance. So as they've got more work coming in and work that they want to do, they're very dynamic people, Sage and Mustang. They're the sort of people, they don't want to let anything go. They'll grab a handful of this. If they can grab another handful of something, they'll grab it, but they won't let the first handful go, which is a very worthwhile trait to have in your life. Most successful people are like that, but they're thinking about ways to take this thing and make it what they want at this stage in their life. And that's one of the things for you folks to think about. We've got Tom's partner, Dave, trading in and out maybe 4, 5, 6 times on a daily bar, very short-term trading. We've got Sage and Mustang saying, want to trade much longer, big signals, big swings. All of that's available in the Daniel Code, and you can just personalize it. You don't have to trade exactly the way I teach you at tutorials. I'm teaching you all of the signals and all of the forecasting techniques. But Eric, you and the others, and Janet, you can take the parts that you want out of that. And Donnie, all you people who've done tutorials lately, you can take out of it the parts you want and put it together in a way that best suits you. One of the important messages about trading, about anything in life, is that when you learn a skill, you have to refine it so that it reflects how you want it to work for you. Okay, you're not working for the tool. The tool is working for you. And that was an interesting discussion with them. False news. Boy, this has been the big topic, hasn't it? And I guess we've always suspected. It's never sort of been made so obvious as the nonsense that's come out during the presidential election. This liberal versus conservative media battle, it's been such great fun, but boy, it's been eye-opening. And the powers of the media and the powers of new media, their reach and their scope is absolutely extraordinary. And the same thing went on in the UK and Europe over Brexit, and it goes on in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, every other country. But it's been most marked in America by the vehemence that's boiled out of the media with Trump's success. And it's been an extraordinary thing to see. And you have to think a little bit about what's going on with all of these situations. And there's a couple of drivers of this media power, media hatred. And one driver is ideology, which is really code for self-interest. The people who promote these way out feminine agendas who want to attack over supposed racial discrimination. It might even be real racial discrimination. There's no doubt it goes on. They're people who have a vested interest in those areas. They might have family or friends or relatives who are affected by these things. And the other one is mercenary. And this is taking a bit off the topic, but the biggest event, I think, of next year, the biggest economic event, is going to be some serious disruptions in the real estate markets in Canada, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, and probably the US. And it's going to start by interest rates going up. And let me tell you, the system is a lot more brittle than you can possibly believe. The prices that these countries with advanced property bubbles, the prices that have been getting paid for property, it's past the sit back and scratch your head. It's like, God, it's past the I can't believe it. It's crazy. But, they're rolling into it. Now, think about this in Sydney, Australia, which is one of the two big boom markets in Australia, Sydney and Melbourne. There's plenty of places in Canada this has happened to. Sweden's talking to some Swedish clients. It's much the same. Property prices have gone up 65% in 4 years. That's on average in those areas. Some have gone up, properties have gone up more than that. But you just take an ordinary go buy an everyday house 4 years ago, probably 400,000 or 500,000. You've made 350,000 on it tax free. Okay, so if you had a mortgage on that house and you'd paid off half of it, you had a couple of $100,000 equity. Now you got $500,000 or $600,000 equity. So with that, you go up and you buy the $1.5 million house. And there are masses, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who have traditionally owned fairly modest real estate assets with reasonable levels of gearing that have bought super fancy houses for big money. And the mortgages, let me tell you, are huge. And it's not going to take very much to start a bit of mortgage stress. And it's not going to take very much mortgage stress to frighten the horses. And I think that's going to be one of the big issues that's going to happen in 2017. When we think about these big issues coming up and the challenges they're going to present, the reality is that little of the news we get is actually true. Think about pensions and budgets in particular, the big lie. There's recent news about what's happening with CalPERS in California, the biggest retirement fund in the world. They have a mandate that says that they assume 7 or 8%, something around their net returns going forward. And because these are such long-term investments and long-term pay cycles that people start working for them and they're managing their pensions, they might not have to pay that out for 30, 35 years. 20 years probably at a minimum. It's these assumptions. It's what they call the forward estimate, what these funds are going to be worth 10, 20, 30 years down the track. That's what matters. And if you build in an arbitrary figure that's not realizable, you finish up broke. And that's what's happened with some of these retirement funds in America. And don't forget that while this sort of concept of building in a fixed return is most obvious in the retirement funds, because some of them are coming under pressure now and it's being talked about, this is exactly how your government budgets all over the world. It's all about the forward estimates. It's what is going to happen over the next 4 years, 8 years, 10 years. And boy, see what's come out today about the Australian budget, that they've barely retained our AAA rating by the skin of the teeth. And that's the sole reason it's now transpired is that the government's changed the accounting standards of one of their big contributors to the budget. It's called the Future Fund. It's a rort. You don't need to know about it. It's supposedly a great thing for Australians. It's really just a method of trying to help pay off the superannuation of Australian public servants, which is just totally out of control. They, you and I and everyone else on they're fixed different entitlements all over the place. In America, I know in Australia, superannuation maximum contributions 9%, public servants 14% employer contribution, and the payouts for some of these mandarins require a fixed capital investment of in excess of $12 million per person to secure the 90% payout that they get. It's scandalous. Talk about the monkeys are out of the zoo and they're running the joint. They're public servants, particularly, well, not just in Canberra. We have layers of them. We have federal public servants, state public servants, local government servants. They're really the people who are running the thing, and they're doing it largely for their own benefit. And these ideas of having built in these returns that you're going to get is a scam, because they're not getting them. The hedge funds can't get them. And this has got to blow sometime. It's been going on for years and years. There hasn't been a high-earning hedge fund environment now for 3 years at least, and maybe longer. The returns that are going into these pension funds and the returns that government are getting are falling abysmally short of the base supposition. So for governments, it doesn't matter. They just kick the can, roll it down another year. The whole basis of most political life is they're not going to be here. They'll be retired with their fat pension, their gold pass for life when it does hit the fan. But I think you're going to start seeing some leakage of these issues next year. So that's going to be interesting. The final point on this page is life concepts. I've talked about this a few times, and in my view, everything in life can be brought down to two concepts. It's either war or it's social. War are the things that are vital to your health, wealth, and happiness. War is about business. War is about providing for your family. War is about providing security for yourselves and your family, not only now but in the future. And everything else is social. And it doesn't matter. And if you think about our news sources, our daily conversations, 99% of what people are talking about is total rubbish. I mean, what's going on Facebook doesn't matter. What's going on Twitter doesn't matter. Okay, that's not your battle. That's social. It's inconsequential. If you want to be involved in that stuff, good, go for it. Having arguments about safe spaces in school, I don't even know what that means. I mean, having endless discussions about gender as opposed I thought we were all either boys or girls. Apparently that's not so. You now have, that's your sexuality, but then you have gender, and you can be a boy but really a girl, and be a girl. I mean, it's just, it didn't happen 20 years ago, so I don't know how the human race has changed so much that now it's, the constant topic conversation. But all of those issues, folks, are social. Okay, they're not your core issues. Your core issues are war. Your core issues are good trading, making money, making enough money to have the things you want to provide for your family, making enough money to put away so you can provide security going forwards for your family. The only forms of security are real military strength, which is beyond your capacity. That's a governmental function. Policing, that's beyond your capacity. That's a governmental function. But your job, the war you're fighting every day, and you should be thinking of this as a war, is to provide enough money for the security of yourself and your family and your loved ones. The rest of it is actually entertainment. If you think of things in those terms, as I do, life becomes terribly simple, and always fun, of course. Aussie dollar USD. I'm going to have to move along a bit, folks. I've got 100 things to tell you. I don't know why we don't make these little chats longer. I love it. I see you're all with me looking at the numbers here, so great to have you with me. There hasn't been a wholesale revolt yet, so this must be all right. I'll get through all of these comments, folks. If you've made a comment in the questions box, the chat box, please stay with us, because I'm going to talk to you about everything, no matter how long it takes. Aussie dollar USD. This has been, in my view, the most fanciful and overrated currency in the world for a very, very long time. Cast your eyes back to the high peaks here. This is 2011. The Aussie dollar at $1.05, $1.08 US. Are you kidding me? I mean, uh, extraordinary. Um, there are some things in markets that just, I mean, I traded, I know what the prices were. I traded just the same, but how in goodness name anyone in rational thought in their brain could have thought that the Aussie dollar was worth that sort of money is beyond me. But I've shown you this chart many times. Those of you who have been with us a long time, you've seen this chart up to probably more than a year ago. And you can see how it's just been bouncing off the Daniel Code numbers and consolidating and retracing, what have you. And I was looking for 65 against the US dollar, which is what I think it's worth. And there are many ways to prove that. But the thing that's stopping that is Australia has a relatively high interest rate. Australian government bonds are paying 2.5%, sometimes 3%. Well, you compare that to the half near zero bounds of Japanese bonds, German bonds, US bonds. It's very attractive. And people keep buying Australian bonds because the interest rates are attractive. And interest rates are largely a function of government policy. They have to keep the interest rates relatively high because Australia is a net debtor country. We don't have enough money, enough wealth to do all the development in this, massive country the size of the continent of the United States. So we import capital, we borrow capital. And for that reason, our interest rates have always been a couple of percentage points. That's the big points. That's 200 points in the language, 2.5%, more than the major countries. But look what's happened here. We got down to that 68, 67 blue line, just closed a bit below it, and then the rally came. And it went right up to the Daniel Code retracement, 78.18. Not bad. This is a 6-day chart. Each bar here is 6 days. And now it's starting to fall away. Look for this to break 68, 67. And then let's see what happens below that. 65.56 is the big support for the Aussie. I think it's very weak. I think that there are enormous problems in the Australian economy. Everyone's got their heads in the sand about it. I think our real estate bubble is going to blow up it'll be dramatic because so many people are going to get hurt. I think it's going to blow up next year. It's only going to be a little pop of the bubble that's going to look like it's going to seem like a big event to people who are caught up in it. And I think we've got a government that's totally and utterly incompetent. I don't know who's running the country. I know a lot of these guys. I went to university with some of them. I've known them for many, many years, some of our leading politicians. I honestly don't think they know what's going on. I'm pretty certain they're not running the country. The bureaucrats are just pulling the levers, and it's appalling, absolutely appalling. And I don't think the alternative is any good either. So I think we're going to get great dramas next year, and they should be reflected in the US dollar index. This is in the Aussie, I should say, the Aussie USD pair. This is the US dollar index. The chart should have changed now. We've been looking at this chart. As you know, for months and months, we've been looking at this chart since 2014, and it's completely controlled by the Daniel Code numbers. You can see it ran up to that 100.830. It went down to test the 93.390 several times, many times. Had one close below it, and then bounced all the way back up, and it's just been vacillating between those two Daniel Code numbers since about January 2015. 2 years. And now we've had a breakout, and it's lodged itself just near that 103.270 blue line. Now, that's not a Daniel Code blue line. Terry, thank you, my friend. I haven't forgotten about you. I've got another hour to go, I think, before I see you. But if not, thank you for your forbearance. I've got another tutorial after this, folks, with Terry down in Melbourne. These blue lines are not the Daniel Code blue lines. They're not exact like the Daniel Code blue lines. They're estimates that just come from extensions off the existing ranges. They're an arbitrary way of looking at price. If you look at the Daniel Code blue lines from time to time, they are absolutely exact and precise. These are not Daniel Code blue lines, but they're a proxy for them because, a lot of you are not members. A lot of you are guests and visitors. We love having you. and I like to give you a guide as to what these markets are doing and where they're going. But that real detailed stuff is for the members. Here's the S&P 500 index, folks. Those of you who'd come to these things regularly, you remember about was it 2 or 3 webinars ago? So that would be either 6 weeks or maybe longer, maybe 2 months ago. I showed you this chart and said the next target up was 23.93, then 24.82, somewhere around 24.50 was going to be a big. I think I introduced you. I said that's a big target, that's a big ask, but funnily enough, a week after I gave you that webinar, Goldman Sachs came out with pages and pages of chart statistics and said, we think that the market's going to go to 24.50. And a week after that, Evercore came out, their big research group, and said they'd polled all their institutional investors, and they thought it was going to go to 24.50. Well, of course they did, because most of my Goldman Sachs clients. But that 2,400 something number is sitting there, sticking there, and you can see how this market, this is the S&P index, has been running up the Daniel Code trading channel all the time since March 2009. You've seen these charts constantly. I try to show them to you pretty much every webinar. And you can see that there are a number of tracks on the way up. This market could run up. It's just regained the median now, which is what it does after failure. That's it regains the the thicker line in the middle is the median. It regains the one below that, which it did and wandered around there. It's now regained the median. Depending on the speed this market goes, it's got a number of different speeds. It can go up at the speed of the median, which is the average of what it normally does, or it can get in the fast lane and go up at the speed of one standard deviation above the mean, which is the first blue line above the thicker blue line. If it goes up the fast lane, it'll be at 2,400 in May next year, which I think is very, very unlikely. If it goes up the median, which is the long-term probability, it will be at 2,400 in February 2018. Now, I'm not telling you that's what's going to happen, but that's one probability. Have a look at this, folks. This is the gold chart. Excuse me for running late here. What I want to show you, we've told you months ago the trend of this market was down, so don't be surprised by what it's doing. And the Fourth Seal has been saying this has been down for a long time. Have a look where the arrows are. Every pull down in this chart has hit a Daniel Code number, a Daniel Code ratio, either on the close or on the bar high low. And where it's sitting now around 1311, that's the 74% retracement of the operating range, Daniel Code number, and the last number left is 1081.9. That's the final, that's the black line, the famous Daniel Code black line. That's the last level of support or resistance in any swing. So that's where this market's heading. It's overdue to rally for a bit now. I think it will get down to 1081 or so, and watch what happens there. If we get a weekly or 6-day close below that, it means the 2015 lows are all probability going to be taken out, and the market is going to go a lot lower. This is gold, and these are the staircases and waterfalls. And as you can see, we've had, I think from memory, it's 15 trend changes in here, only one of which failed. It's quite extraordinary. This is what Sage and Mustang are going to be trading in various markets, and we're going to talk to you a whole lot more about this later on. But here's the interesting thing here. Let me grab my highlighter, spotlight. Look at this. Staircase are basically a buys, waterfalls are basically sells. So buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. Now that's all normal. Then look what happens over here from August 2016. 1, 2, 3, 4 waterfalls, or 4 more trend sell signals without a staircase or a buy signal in between them. And that's an extraordinary pattern, and that's what's caused this big sell-off in gold. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but from a observational point of view, from just chart watching, that's the strange thing, or the unusual thing that's caused this big sell-off in gold. 4 consecutive waterfall or sell signals without a break. Let's move on. I don't want to keep you folks too long. I appreciate you being with us. What else have we got for you? We'll have to keep this short, folks. Cable. Cable is GBP USD pair, British pound US dollar. It's called Cable. Was invented. Forex traders have nicknames for all these currencies. British pound is Cable. The euro is it Fabric? Anyway, they have nicknames for all this stuff, but that why this is called Cable. Originally, the first transatlantic underwater cable was laid by the British and the Americans in 1858, and they used that fibre for the euro. Thank you, Sven. Fibre for the euro, and that cable was used to set the settling marks for the British pound, which was then a very, very important world currency. So that's why it's called that. Have a look at this. I've showed you this chart way back in September last year, before last, September 15. I showed you this chart and said that the waterfall had started, and that waterfall so far has produced 42,000 per one contract. Waterfalls and staircases are great trading tools, particularly on the longer term charts. Okay, here are the best guesses for 2017. I don't like to. David Samuels likes the loonie. I think it's a sell, mate. I think it's going to get trashed. But, I don't like to call these forecasts. I call them the best guesses for 2017. The best one, of course, for the forecast is markets fluctuate, sometimes violently. And that's not original. That was from one of the JP Morgan spoke from many years ago. Markets fluctuate. Yes, they do. My best guess is S&P is going to find 2,400. Other equity indices are going to make fresh highs. I think we get a V-shaped top and a big correction next year, and I'm looking forward to that. I think cable and Aussie dollar are the best shorts. I think gold makes new lows, and we'll know that once it approaches that black line. And I think there's a big probability that the CAD, or the loonie, as David calls it, gets trashed. I see them as on the wrong side of a huge liberal agenda. I see them on the wrong side of a bursting real estate bubble in some cities and provinces, and I see them as being the net losers of whatever Trump does to undo NAFTA. And I think natural gas is the big winner. Natural gas is a strange market. It's very, very much underutilized because of domestic concerns, keeping it in America, very limited exports of natural gas. One day all that's going to be more sensibly looked at, and it should be worth a whole lot of money. Okay, let's go on. Free trials, folks. If you like a free trial there, you think the Daniel Code, just go to the website, www.thedanielcode.com. Click on the free trials banner, get your username and password, send your username to Terry. He'll switch you on of everything for a 31-day free trial, including the Force Seal and everything else. Here is our normal compliance statement, reminding you that trading is a risky business, and it's more risky if you don't know the Daniel Code. Most of you guys are well seasoned to it now. And finally, Mrs. Needham and my children and Terry up in Canberra and his growing family all join me in wishing you a very Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And it's been absolutely great to have you with us trading during the year, coming to our webinars. It's been a great privilege to have you with us. Okay, quick run through these questions. And boy, I've got a lot of them today. Some of them are all greetings. Yes, happy Christmas to everyone. Rob is saying, I'll get in early before the end. Best wishes for Christmas and with the family. John, thank you. May have to come back to New Zealand. The Aussie economic time bomb is coming. It's unavoidable. Unemployment rate 5.8, debt high, mining gone, government debt over 700 billion. I would say drink up and enjoy the quiet period. Hope it's not too hot this summer. Yeah, we've had a couple of really hot ones here, Rob. Current dilemma in US. Oh, this is Marvino. We've talked about that. Rob, thank you, and a happy Christmas to you, my friend. We've getting a couple of real stinky hot ones over here. But look, I have a big swimming pool and a very big air conditioning unit, so I'm handling it very well, thank you. All Blacks, yes, Rolf, we need them to keep going. They'll be our entertainment in the winter, won't they? This is more from Rob. Eurozone 2, Italy's banks, boy, another crisis. Quite right. You see what's happened with that, forgotten the name, but the big bank, they bailed it out today, Rob. Shocking. Italian government. What they bailed it out with? I know they're cutting up spaghetti. I don't think they've got any money. Spending makes up 50% of Italy's GDP. Yeah, they are hopelessly insolvent, no doubt. Chase talking about liberals, they believe their own BS. Michael's Pell's given me a couple of YouTubes. I'll look at those later. Thank you, Michael. Elizabeth Warren wants to impeach her. I look, somebody, you're not allowed to say what I really want to say. I mean, she's a horror, absolute horror. Eric, glad you're enjoying it, Eric. Janet, you give me hope. Yes, I hope I do, darling. You'll be all right. Just get well. Horses, Michael, I don't know what that means. David, John Needham, disadvantaged kid, no Commodore 64, and bouncing balls. Dave O'Brien, Chad Valley for me, good on you. Marvino, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, two of the greatest scientists of time, never used computers. No, guess what else, Marvino? Sir Isaac Newton wrote more about Christianity than he ever did about science, and one of the things he did is he used the book of Daniel and the time cycles in there to say that Daniel prophesied the coming of the Messiah. If you're interested in that sort of stuff, you can get it. It's on the website. You can search for it. It's called Prophecies of St. John. And it's Isaac Newton, the father of science, saying that the book of Daniel is the most important book in is the most important book in the Bible because it foretells the coming of the Messiah. And Isaac Newton does the math on it. Very interesting. Need Trump to drain the Canberra swamp. Oh, boy. David, don't we both? Pauline, look, I'm a big supporter of Pauline. I know her personally. I don't think she's got the skills, but she's got the heart. And that's more than most of these bludgers have got, isn't it? Okay, Eric likes my thinking. Good idea. Can I discuss current silver chat? Eric, I'm sorry. If you can write me an email before these things, I can certainly do it for you. Oz is run by the banks, the whole world is, isn't it, Michael? And of course, after Trump's bashing the banksters, who do you think's going to be running America? Well, look at your new treasurer and most of his mates. Goldman Sachs wins again. The squid. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you're happy to spend Christmas Eve with your family and friends instead of giving me a refresher. Till the new year. Well, Stephen, that'd be great if you're available in the new year. I'm worried about you going back to work and I don't get to contact you for a while. Shoot me an email, mate. Let me know when you'll be available. Tomorrow is my Christmas Eve. I just really want to get you guys doing tutorials and refreshers done. So you've got a video to work with over the holidays. Mike Murphy, thank you, my friend, and to you. We'll have a chat soon. Rob. Thank you, my friend. Johnny Barnes, excellent commentary. Enjoy hearing it. Merry Christmas. Thank you. And to you too, John. I heard Newton remained a virgin all his life. Michael, I haven't had the benefit of hearing that. He didn't confide that in me, but it's an interesting thought. 1335. Can you explain its importance? Absolutely, Scott. It's the basis of all vibrations and numbers in trading. That's blessed time. In Daniel 12, if you come to a tutorial, I'll be happy to not only explain to you, I'll show you how to use it. If you don't have the inclination to do that, go to the Daniel Code website, click on articles, and scroll down until you find one titled Live at the Springs. And that is a recording of part of a tutorial I did in Colorado Springs many years ago, talking about the Daniel Code, where it comes from, talking about blessed time 1335, how you use it and what it actually means. Rolf, you enjoyed it. Thank you for your kind words. That's awfully nice of you. Thank you, my friend. Rolf has left. I appreciate his comments. Todd, all the best to you, my friend. And Scott, you too. All of you have been with us. Thank you, folks. Almost all of you stayed right till the end. That's terrific. Appreciate it. Sorry to have kept you so long. Merry Christmas. Happy, prosperous New Year. And I look forward to talking to you again in the new year. Bye-bye for now.